This is pre-recorded lecture 5, and it is a good point to recap that where we are in this course. And in order to see that, so we have actually in this course we have 2 units of lecture. So one is the pre-recorded unit of lecture, another is the actual unit of live lecture. So when I say 6+1 lecture, it means it's a live lecture. So the +1 is basically the first lecture where nothing much happened. So this was the plan, proposed plan or proposed syllabus for the formalism part, and as you can see that we have already covered the basic ideas which is stated here, and basically the concepts, all the basic concepts of superposition, concept of state, amplitude, measurement and all that. And in the context of these two experiments, one is double slit experiment, another is Stern-Gerlach experiment. We have clearly stated the postulates of quantum mechanics, except one, which is the dynamics part, that how the time how a state changes or evolves with time, and that is basically the Schrodinger equation. We have not entered in that, but we will go there this week. So then we talked about the interpretations of quantum mechanics, which is Copenhagen and many world expansion. Especially we tried to understand things in terms of the famous Schrodinger cat picture. And then we entered into the mathematical formalism. So we have already gone through all these ideas, that the bracket, the linear algebra formalism, Hermitian operator and all that. So this takes 4 lectures, and I have not yet done couple of things, which is this Cauchy thing, and but we will do all these things today. So what we will do today, we will wind up this whole thing. And there is one point which I have missed in this description, and that is the point of dynamics, as I said. And of course, the formalism is not complete with the dynamics, and we will talk about the dynamics in another lecture or two. So once we wrap up this part, we will do a detailed case study for 2-state system and infinite state system. So the idea of any finite state system is very similar to how a finite state system behaves, is very similar to the 2-state system, and we have done already one 2-state system, which is the spin half, and we will do some other cases also in this in next lectures. So the next 5 to 6 lectures, which is this week, again the unit of lecture here is the physical lecture or the live lecture. So the next 5 to 6 lecture we will cover this part, that is the continuum, what happens in continuum and in finite state system, and that will wrap up the whole formalism. So this week and next week, and then we will enter in specific problems in 1D and 2D and 3D, and that is it. So let me recap what we have already learned so far and consolidate it into a more abstract and general framework. So we have learned the quantum state is best represented by a ray in the Hilbert space. So in textbooks you will see people often call it a vector, but it is a loose notation, but actually as we have understood and established that it is not just a vector, it is a ray, because of the reason, because each of these states represents there are infinitely many states which represents to the same state, which are related by a phase transformation, and that is not a property of vectors, it is a special kind of vectors. They are called rays or projective vectors, and the space where they live is called projective complex vector space. So dimension of this vector is given by the of this vector space is determined by the physical problem at hand and the kind of measurement you are doing. For example, if you are measuring the position of an electron, there are infinitely many states, but if you are measuring the spins, there are only 2 possibilities that we know from empirically. Okay. And so a quantum state, and we understood already that why we need this quantum state to be represented by a ray. We need it to be a vector, that we understood from the superposition principle, that adding 2 spins, a linear combination of two states must produce another state, that we learned from Stern-Gerlach. And we also want it to be normalized. We want it to be normalized, and that is for the reason because we want eventually the square of this, because we interpreted that a inner product of a ray with another ray gives the probability of the system to be in state psi to be in the state phi, and we want this the probability amplitude, and the probability is represented by the square of that. And in order for that to be a probability, we want it to satisfy this kind of a relation. We already gone through this, that how we, why we need this kind of a condition. And we also because of the probabilistic interpretation, that is the short answer. And we also realized, which is actually I should have said it before, that every state can be represented by two vectors, which are dual vectors. One is a bra, another is a ket, and the bra and ket meet for can be used together to get the inner product, which has to be 1. So, if you can think this psi as a row vector, this psi ket as a column vector and psi bra as a row vector, then you can define this inner product as just like an usual vector. And similarly, a inner product which is with another state, that should give you a scalar, it's a complex number, that gives you the probability amplitude of finding that state psi into phi. So, what is an act of measurement? We have already discussed. An act of measurement takes a state to another state. Now, in order for and that you know again from the experiment, because when you do an SZZ on a psi, you get either a plus z or minus z. So, the psi goes to z plus z, let us say. So, that is an act of measurement, it takes you a state to another state. So, to transform a state, again I am loosely using the word vector, but back of your mind remember they are rays. So, loosely speaking, a vector must go to another vector and by an act of measurement, and that kind of transformation is possible by multiplying it with a matrix. So, we represent any act of measurement, any act of measurement will give me a number, and that number will represent something you can observe. So, that is why they are called observables. And these observables are represented as a matrix or an operator in the Hilbert space, that we realized. Why? Because we want the act of observation to take a state to another state. Okay. So, these are the observables. Now, we also realize there exists a very special set of states, because you normally know that if you act a operator on a state, you get another state, but there is a possibility that if you act a operator on a state, you get back the same state, okay, with some prefactor, but the state is the same. So, there are some states where that happens, and they are called the eigenstates, and that you know again from the linear algebra. When you act an operator on its own eigenstate, it will give you an eigenvalue times that same state. So, that is the definition of eigenvalues, and there are set of physical states which are like that. And examples include, for example, if I perform a Stern-Gerlach setup, if I have a Stern-Gerlach setup where I pass a plus z beam through a SZZ device, or a single electron with plus z orientation through a SZZ device, I will get a plus z. Why? Because the plus z is an eigenstate of SZZ, of the measurement, which is z component of spin. And it produces, we know by now that it produces a plus z goes to plus z with a plus h bar by 2 eigenvalue. So, that fact is represented into this kind of states. Okay. We already also understood that this eigenstates span the basis. We know it mathematically, this is true, that eigenstates of an operator span the basis, or like it, sorry, I mean to say it forms a basis for in that vector space. And it is also true here, because we already know that these eigenstates plus z and minus z. So, they span the basis, they span the Hilbert space of this, and any vector in this Hilbert space is expressible in terms of these two vectors, this plus z and minus z. So, here is the more abstract form of this, that an arbitrary vector in this Hilbert space can be expressed as a linear combination of these eigenvectors of an operator in this Hilbert space. Okay. So, and so on. So, now you can think of okay, I will get back to this B unitary and second vector point later, but let us proceed with this. Okay. Now, we will get a little mathematical. So, we will now discuss about representation, exact representation of an operator in a Hilbert space. You already know that how to express a vector in a Hilbert space, and vector alpha, let us say alpha ket is an abstract object. but if you want to express it as a in a particular place, you need a basis. So this alpha ket can be written as like that, C a prime a alpha, where each component C a prime is alpha a prime. So it is like expressing a vector a into I j k, all these components, and these are the coefficients of this component. So similarly, you want a compact a representation of a vector, a matrix also in the Hilbert space. So let us say X is an operator whose job is to take you to some state psi to some other state beta, let us say. So now if I choose to write the X, if I write the X as an outer product, if you guess you already know what is an outer product. If you take a alpha bra, if you take a beta bra alpha ket, then that defines a inner product. That and inner product, you know already how to write down an inner product. You take the row vector and the column vector and multiply element by element. For an outer product will give us, and at the end you get a number, you get a scalar. So inner product reduces the dimension of the object that it is multiplying, and outer product increases the dimension of the object, which means if you have a vector a alpha and a vector beta, when you do an outer product you get a matrix, and it is written like this, and then you this one will have a row column vector, this one will be row vector, and each element of this vector will be multiplied by each element for this vector to form a row. Okay. So that is how you define a object like that.